Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty haunting experiments in behavioral science. We're talking about the story of Universe 25. So, picture this. A paradise. You have no hunger, no disease, no predators. Everything you could ever possibly need is just provided for you. Now, here's the big question. If we actually built that utopia, would it last? Well, back in the 1960s, a researcher decided to find out. He built that exact paradise and then just sat back to see what would happen. And the answer he found? It was a definitive and honestly, a pretty chilling no. What he saw was a complete societal collapse, a fall from paradise straight into chaos. Okay, let's get into what actually happened. So, it all started with building a world that was, by pretty much every measure, absolutely perfect. The experiment was officially called Universe 25, and it was run by a researcher named John B. Calhoun. His whole goal was to see what happens to social behavior when you take away all the normal pressures of life, leaving just one single limitation. And the conditions? They were just incredible. I mean, Calhoun created a literal mouse paradise. We're talking unlimited food and water, a perfect climate, and absolutely zero predators or diseases. Their living space was always kept clean, tons of nesting spots. It was really designed to be heaven on earth for these mice.
But, and this is the kicker, there was one crucial catch. While they had everything they needed to live, the actual physical space inside their universe was limited. And that one single constraint, it would become the engine of the entire experiment.
So, they put a few healthy mice into this paradise, and at first, things went exactly like you'd think they would. But that very success, well, it quickly planted the seeds for its own downfall.
The population just exploded. I mean, with no threats and endless resources, their numbers were doubling about every 55 days. That's a mind-blowing rate of growth.
But with that population boom came all new kinds of pressure. All of a sudden, there wasn't enough social space, The mice started struggling to find any meaningful role in this super crowded world, and that's when the first real signs of conflict and social withdrawal started to show up. And that brings us to the most famous and, the most disturbing part of the whole experiment, the total and complete collapse of their society. Calhoun actually came up with the name for this whole phenomenon. He called it the behavioral sink. And it's this idea that you see a complete breakdown of normal behaviors and social rules when a population gets too dense, even if there are still plenty of resources to go around. And this breakdown hit different groups in different ways. You can see it here. The dominant males, they became hyper-aggressive. The mothers, and this is just shocking, started abandoning or even attacking their own babies. Other males just checked out completely, becoming total outcasts. The entire social world was just unraveling. And out of all this chaos, this new generation of mice appeared, a group that Calhoun gave this hauntingly poetic name. He called them the beautiful ones.
Now, these mice looked physically perfect. Their fur was spotless because they never fought. But their behavior, compared to a normal mouse, it was just empty. They stopped mating, they stopped socializing, they avoided any kind of conflict. Their whole life was just eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves. They were like these beautiful, empty shells, totally cut off from any social purpose.
And here's the most critical part. Even after the population peaked, and there was plenty of space again, it was just too late. The mice who were left had lost the social skills. They didn't know how to mate, or raise young, or form a community. They had literally forgotten how to be mice. And so, despite having everything they needed, the colony died out, completely. So, what on earth does this grim story mean for us? It's really tempting to draw a straight line to human society. But the key here is to see this as a warning, not a prophecy. Let's look at the connections that people often make. When people hear about Universe 25, they often start pointing to things in our own world. That feeling of being alone in a crowded city, the withdrawal we see with social media addiction, falling birth rates in some countries, or the rise in mental health struggles. These are the kinds of parallels that get drawn all the time. But, and this is maybe the single most important thing to take away from all this, we have to remember one fundamental truth. Humans are not mice. We have a level of complexity that makes any simple one-to-one comparison, well, impossible.
Here's the real difference, right? Where mice are mostly driven by instinct, We're guided by culture, by innovation, by technology. Their social roles were pretty fixed, but we can invent new ways to find meaning and purpose. We don't just live in our environment, we actively change it.
So the real lesson from Universe 25 probably isn't that overpopulation is going to doom us all. It's that a healthy society needs so much more than just material stuff. It needs a sense of purpose. It needs genuine connection. It needs meaningful roles for people to play. Without those things, even a paradise can fall apart.
And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. In our own world, with all its complexity and all its abundance, what are the things, the roles, the connections, the shared goals that truly hold our society together?